Stop this. Give me a second. Can I share this link still? Yes. Okay, I'm gonna do quickly that before I dive into it. Just give me 1 second here. Will I finish this off? Should have done this before I started, but it is a tiring day already. All right, hey everyone, this is Ash. Welcome back to the King's Speech. So, a couple of quick things before we dive into the chapter proper here. Finally got the first part of my Yamato video done. So for anyone that's interested, I've linked the link to the video in the comment or in the description. Wait. I've also got my two dogs in here with me. One is a puppy, so if you hear some small growling and barking noises, that is him in the background as he's making himself at home and playing around. Shouldn't be too distracting. I should be able to speak over him pretty well, but if it does get too distracting, let me know, but I think it should be okay. And like last time, I do have a fan running because it is super hot here. So it should again still be okay. It's probably going to be a small buzzing noise in the background, but shouldn't be too distracting. Tested it out, seemed to be working fine. But just so everyone does know what it is if they're curious. But with that said, let us dive into the chapter. No, one more thing. Depending on timing and whether I feel like I have enough about to say on it or not, I might do a little bit of a digression at the end after we're done the chapter, covering my views, thoughts, everything on that. I might talk a little bit about something that's been bugging me, which is how fans are kind of misusing the term or the word stakes in storytelling when they're talking about like death in One Piece and like how stakes have gone up since death is now apparently a possibility again in the series. So I might talk about that at the end because it's really been bugging me how that term is being misused and misinterpreted. We'll see how timing and everything else goes. So without further ado, let's dive into One Piece chapter 987, Vassals of Glory, as we have finally a color spread with all the Straw Hats as they're riding on a giant pug with some other colored pugs around them. We finally have Jinbei as part of the Straw Hats again on the cover page. I really love his kimono with the little bears on the waves and everything. It's super nice. Really love the design. But yeah, honestly, it's probably been one of my favorite color spreads recently. It's good to see the crew all together like that in their summer attire. So yeah, really nice, like it. And of course, we have, so it says One Piece, we're going to live like tomorrow doesn't exist. By Ichiro Oda, translation by Stephen Paul, lettering by Vanessa Satone. And we see as we go flashback to Kaido when he got the little X-shaped scar on his abdomen from where Oden sliced him. And he flashes back to Oden boiling in the pot as he throws his vassals off and goes, "Open Wano's borders." And you see them all running away, going after the Kaido's goons going after them. Wipe out the name of Kozuki. All the vassals are crying and running away. And Oden tells Kaido, "Don't make the mistake of underestimating our samurai." And Kaido goes, "They will speak of you for years to come." And he goes, "They can forget me for all I care. My soul will live on." And you see Kaido as he executed him with a bullet. And you see that's what he's flashing back to him thinking, when the vassals all attacked him. And you see a da-da-da-doom as they all just take him right off the edge of the roof. As someone shouts, "Lord Kaido, the Akazai Samurai, it's a raid, grab your weapons." And you see Kinemon with a as he's just straining and pushing his sword in as hard as he can, and it pierces Kaido's flesh. And you see Okiku doing the same with one of his hands. He just pierces his sword right through the middle of his hand. And you see Cat Viper grabbing onto one of the other ones. I don't know if he's biting it or like just grappling it. And you see Raizo's got two of his swords to Kaido's throat, and he's got like a cross one, as if he's about to behead him. And you see a throb as you see that giant scar he's got on his side from Oden starts throbbing. And Kaido looks freaked as he goes, "The scar I got from Oden. Why does it hurt? Why do their blades pierce me?" He goes, "Ah!" Hey! Hubby's getting overexcited. Why does it hurt? Why do their blades pierce me? He's like, ah! He's like, do they use his Rio too? And his goons are Kaido screaming. As you see this just black crackling hockey energy radiating out from the scabbards as they push Kaido over the edge of the platform onto the one below. And they have pierces high, and you have as all the scabbards are just stabbing into him with all their rage. And he said, yeah, as they slam into the ground as all of his goons are just scattering everywhere. And yeah, they crashed through the floor. They didn't do what I think they did. Did they? He's like, kill those samurai. Were the pirates earlier just a distraction? There could be more intruders around. And you see Hyogoro picking up his sword and the other samurai just taking off their disguises as they surround the vassals and go, you're correct. Well, we won't let you get any closer to the Akazaya. And Big Mom just doesn't give a shit. She's like, what's this? What a violent feast. Is Kaido dead or what? It's like, whoa, they were in disguise. Aren't those the Yakuza we had imprisoned in Udon? And Yamato goes, let's hurry, Luffy. We have to finish Kaido off. Those are the real vassals of Oden. Luffy's like, yeah, and they're tough. And someone goes, I found you, Yamato. As Ulti comes up in for the attack, I think with her own spiked club, and Yamato uses his to block. And you see Luffy go, oh, headbutt. Yamato's like, Ulti. And Ulti's like, you're going to pay for what you did to me. Whatever was the meaning of that, Yamato. Yamato goes, it's what I should have done. This is the day when I become Kozuki Oden at last. So Ulti goes, I have no idea what that means. Are you crazy or stupid? And the goons go, young Master Yamato, it's an emergency. Your father's been attacked. This area is crawling with enemies. And Yamato's like, well, I'm not on your side anymore. Let my father die. And it's like, what? And you see Straw Hat as Big Mom comes rushing in. And he's like, ugh, Big Mom, I'm busy right now. And you see Nami going, let's get out of here, Carrot. He's like, yeah. And Nami extends her climate attack in the little three-eyed rug thing that Yokai is holding her. And she goes, black balls! And she just fills it up with the electric balls. It sets off a lightning cloud rod inside of its head and just electrocutes it. And Carrot does the same with an electric claw to get the one off her back off. And Linlin's like, I came all this way just so I could kill you. All of Orochi's hallucinations no one believed have come to pass. The rumors of, or they go back to Kaido, who's getting up, kind of holding his chest from where he got stabbed, going, have come to pass. The rumors of figures at Oden Castle, Punk Hazard, Dressrosa, the lost island of Zou. Oddly enough, you have been hiding in the shadow, cast by the very man I've had my eye on, Straw Hat. So you've allied yourselves with pirates. And you see his eye just forming like a little circle around him as they're enclosing him. And he goes, you persevered for 20 years, and in some cases traveled through time. You managed to recruit an army. And he grins as he goes, but pirates will betray you. When they know you lose, they will abandon you and sail away. I got to talk about it at the end because it ties into a theory I've had, but I'll save that till the end. But I want to talk about that. And he goes, and I've already beaten Straw Hat Luffy in a submission once. And Kinemon with his swords drawn is like, you speak slander. Sir Luffy is not like you. He will one day stand at the pinnacle of this sea. If every last one of us dies, he will remain. Mark my words, daybreak will come to Wano. That is the promise I made to my lord. And you see on the performance floor, it's like, why did you come here, Straw Hat? Don't tell me jokes about beating Kaido. Luffy's like, no, that's not it. And he's like, what? And Luffy's silent for a minute as Yamato goes, it's not Luffy? And Hyogoro's like, what was that, Straw Hat? What did you say, Straw Hat fellow? It's Kaido and you and your officer Orochi and his followers. I came here to whoop the whole lot of you. It's an all-out war. And Big Mom goes, ma, ha, 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 ha. Don't get ahead of yourself. With what, a few hundred men? And you see Queen laughing. He's like, what a dope. Give her, Master Queen. An invading force of thousands has snuck in through the rear. And he's like, what? As he starts freaking out. He's like, it's a samurai we rest in the flower capital. And you see kids getting some backup, as is Zoro. Wait, zip it. And he's like, it's the samurai we rest in the flower capital, the prisoners from Udon. And there's the former warlord Law, in addition to the pirates from earlier. They're all working together and they just keep coming. For some reason, there's also Marco the Phoenix near the entrance with Charlotte Perro Sparrow. Oh my god, are you kidding me? We'll talk about that at the end as well, I think, huh? And you see every last drunk on Onigashima. Listen up. The party's over. Grab your weapons. That's Queen talking. He's like, huh? And you see the samurai celebrating. Like, let's do it. Let's take back our Wano. And you see Kaido going, whoa. I heard that, Straw Hat. Do it. I accept your challenge. And you see a whoa, as Kaido transforms into his dragon form and starts spiraling upwards as he smashes through the roof of Onigashima. Hey! It goes, I'll show you the greatest army in the world. As he smashes through, and you see all the scabbards are just grabbed onto his scales as they're climbing outside. And Kinemon goes, Sir Luffy, much appreciated. Luffy goes, Kinemon, I'll catch up later. All right, I'll admit this is a sick color, or not color spread, sick panel as you see Kaido on the roof of Onigashima. Snow is falling down. He's being illuminated by the moon, kind of ET style. The scabbards all lined out in front of him, like ready to do battle. You have dome roof Onigashima, and he goes, whoa, I think I've sobered up. If you want to do battle, an open space is best. Just like the last time. Only now Oden is dead. And Cat Viper and Dogstorm say, but there's one more difference between that day and now. We had a feeling Yugara wouldn't be fighting inside the dome in dragon form. So we brought many a warrior from our kingdom with us. And you see the minks, as all the minks are lined up outside. And you have the snow is light like flower petals. The perfect night to watch the full moon. And you see Cat Viper just doing this Cheshire cat looking grin like a motherfucker. I love that. Just that image is perfect. Love it so much. We're finally going to see, hey, Sippity. Finally going to see the Dogstorm Cat Viper in their little Zoan forms. I'm excited. All right, let's break this down from the start, I guess. What kind of thoughts? I'm mixed on the whole, Kaido having been injured by the Akazaya Samurai, just because Oda has built up kind of this legend of invincibility around Kaido. Hey, stop with the noise. Legend of invincibility around Kaido. And if the solution to that ends up being like, oh, it's just because everyone that tried to kill him up to this point just didn't have this specific kind of, like, wave hockey, and so they couldn't penetrate his scales, and that's why they were never able to kill or execute him or ever do any damage when they tortured him. I'll be a little bit let down by that because it seems like a too convenient of a solution. Like, oh, it just so happens that these samurai just happen to have this special skill that would be the only thing to take down Kaido. It'd feel a little bit too, what's the word I'm looking for? It'd feel a little bit too convenient. Oi! Stop with the barking. It'd feel a little bit too convenient for that to happen. On the other hand, I'm just like, I get why potentially this moment could have happened. Like looking at this moment as a way of like, all right, it's supposed to be cathartic for the Akazai Samurai because all those years ago, they failed to protect their lord. They failed to protect Oden, and the regret that they've been living with ever since is even kind of like the regret and the rage and like all these powerful emotions, which really do have ties to hockey. Because we've seen that hockey's kind of amplified by emotions. Like we've seen it with Conqueror's hockey, especially, where every time before Luffy managed to, control his abilities, He always managed to use Conqueror's Haki at like a peak emotional moment. Whether it was saving Ace, whether it was stopping Boa from smashing Marguerite, and the others. He always had like these bursts of Haki at points of heightened emotion. So in that regard, and kind of see like what Oda's going for, being like, the samurai have been waiting for this moment for years and years and years at this point. And like Denjiro, a lot of them have been kind of repressing this rage that they've been bottling up inside. And they finally got a chance to unleash it when they saw him in front of them, and finally be like, yeah, we're finally going to be, unleash all these emotions through our Haki to kind of show you how much we disdain you and all that. In that regard, right, it makes a little bit more sense how they were able to pierce him so strongly. It also makes more sense for why Kaido's like, oh, my scar is throbbing. Why am I getting flashbacks to Oden right now? Like, what's going on? In that regard, it makes sense to be like, all right, yeah, that's why they're able to hurt him. That's where all the emotion is coming from, because they're kind of exploding all these emotions through their Haki, and kind of sensing that. That's why this is happening. But because I personally am not as invested in the Akazaya and their fight and their struggle, and because I didn't really care for Oden, I don't really feel the catharsis that the way I'm supposed to. So I'm not really actively rooting for them to be able to hurt Kaido and like damage him. And so that's why this moment is kind of like a mixed one for me. It doesn't land, I think, the way Oda intended. With that said, I really hope there is something more to Kaido's dragon form and his abilities that has made him unkillable up to this point. Because if it really turns out to be like, oh no, Rio was just the missing ingredient, that's all they need, and they could have taken him out, I'll be really, really disappointed. But the fact we haven't gotten his backstory yet, the fact that we haven't seen his hybrid form or his awakened form, makes me think that we still have a ways to go before he's actually taken down, and this is more of like a momentary, unexpected lapse in kind of judgment thing where his defenses were down, and now that he knows what's happening, now that he knows what to expect, there's going to be like a turnaround in his ability to finally to see him go all out, and that's where we'll see the real challenge step in. So that's what I'm really hoping for with this. I'll be kind of disappointed if he takes a lot more damage after this. We'll talk about that at the end, because I think that's related more to my overall thoughts on the raid. Uh, I think I'm supposed to recognize some of the samurai with Hyogoro. Like, I know some of them have been named, but I, for the life of me, cannot remember them. Like the one standing next to him in that one square where they're surrounding the Akazaya. I feel like he's one of the Yakuza bosses I'm supposed to remember, but I cannot for the life of me remember what his name is or what his deal was. Ulti is like, whatever. Like, oh, right, she and Yamato are going to throw down, so that should be an interesting little challenge to see. I really want to wonder what the hell is happening to the rest of the Flying Six. Like, assume now that the battle's picking up, we'll probably see their abilities kind of come into it. But yeah, given that Ulti went down so easily with Yamato, hey, Demon's Fade, nice to see you. Joined in late, that's all right. I think we still have some discussion to do. So, unless Ulti again also shows like that she has an awakened form or something else, I don't see how she's going to take on Yamato again. When Yamato kicked her ass pretty easily the first time around, but we'll see. I'll say, despite like all my mixed feelings on Big Mom, I did love how much he's just like reveling in all of the chaos and confusion that Luffy's sowing, and she's just like so casual. I was like, "Oh, is Kaido dead? Oh no, not yet. Oh dang. All right, I guess fine." And she's just like having the time of her life. Like, I really love that part of this. But yeah. I did like Kaido's little speech to the Scabbards, where it feels like he's finally taking them seriously as rivals and contenders, to be apparently be able to take them down. So I do like how he's finally like showing that he respects them for everything they're going through. Again, I really, really wish Oda had spent just a little more time developing the Scabbards and their relationship with Oden and with Kaido, so this moment had a little more impact. Like it should have been sending kind of shivers down my spine when I saw this moment. Like, oh yeah, no, I was getting excited for him. Kind of like, yeah, it's nice, but not really feeling anything particular about it. Especially with Kinemon's words of like, oh, will Sunday stand at the pinnacle of the sea? Sir Luffy's gonna be Pirate King basically. Even if everyone dies, I'm gonna bring Dave back to Wano. I know a lot of people have been speculating or saying, oh, the Scabbards are potentially gonna die, like all of them are gonna die, or some of them are gonna die. I don't buy that. I do not think any of these guys are gonna die. Do I think they're gonna lose and potentially get tortured really badly? Yes. Do I think they're gonna die? Not a chance in hell. Which brings me to think the most interesting part of this chapter for me personally is that kind of knowing angry grin that Kaido has, where he says, "But pirates will betray you. When they know you'll lose, they will abandon you and sail away." So I don't know if I've talked about this theory on my Twitter yet, or mentioned it in any other platform yet. But when I was thinking about like, what is the favor that Kaido owes Lin Lin that she's kind of holding over his head, and kind of knowing her, knowing what she does, I'm kind of convinced that when Rocks clashed with Roger and Garp at God Valley, I'm pretty sure that Whitebeard either sold them out and told Garp and Roger that, hey, these guys are going to be there. This is what they're planning. I don't really support it. I'll help you take them down. I feel like Whitebeard betrayed Rocks at that point. And I think once Big Mom saw how the tides were turning at God Valley and that the Rocks pirates were losing, I think Big Mom also betrayed Rocks and sailed away from there at that point and basically left him to die. And she might have potentially also taken Kaido with her as well, because the way he's talking about it feels like there's something he's gone through before. Something personal he's gone through before, and I don't think it's going to be like a surprise thing like, oh, it's happened with this unnamed pirate we've never heard of. So it'll be interesting to finally get to that Kaido backstory and find out exactly what happened with Rocks at that time and what exactly he owes to Big Mom. So I'm looking forward to that, I think, more so than anything. And then, again, like Luffy's moment of like, oh, I came here to whoop the whole lot of you. It's an all-out war. Doesn't hold the same impact as it did when he declared it on Fishman Island, saying, Big Mom, I'm going to kick your ass, or on Punk Hazard when he said to Law, I'm going to take out all of the emperors. Because back then it read more as like him being like a little bit cocky and confident. Wait, a little bit cocky and confident. And I think the reason it doesn't hold the same impact anymore with Luffy kind of being the underdog role is that Big Mom and Kaido really haven't established themselves as a legitimate threat in the same way that Crocodile or Moria or any of the other bosses, basically Aokiji from pre-time skip did. There's like a legitimate sense of, oh, how is this character going to be taken down, and kind of knowing that Luffy's going to find like a clever, unique way to kind of take them down. And it doesn't have that same feeling anymore. And I don't think I can articulate it any better than that, because Kaido and Big Mom have really, like, the struggles with them have been too easy, where the Straw Hats have gone in, been overwhelmed and immediately kind of bounced back because of plot convenience, came away without a single scratch on them. So if Oda really wants to kind of make this seem like a struggle or a challenge, he's going to have to really, really work hard to kind of make these characters a threat again in a believable way. But we'll get to that at the end. We'll talk about my thoughts on the raid and where it's going. So Damon Spade asks, what do you think about Oda's use of hockey? The scabbard stabbing Kaido with Rio didn't feel any different from a normal stab. Yeah, so I guess I'll do a little kind of digression on my thoughts on hockey. Conceptually, I understand the need and importance of hockey in the series, mostly because of kind of the Logia powers. Because I know a lot of people are speculating, like, oh, how would, say, some of the non-hockey straws potentially take on a Logia user? And there's things of like, oh, you'd use the elemental weakness, you'd use maybe like Sea Stone, knuckle, knuckle cuffs, whatever, brass knuckles, they Sea Stone brass knuckles or something like that, to kind of take them out. Whereas, like, yeah, well, that wouldn't really work in all the situations. Like, how would you take on someone like Akainu, whose magma's like, or magma's so such an overwhelming natural force? How could you possibly like counteract that with just some kind of elemental thing, like other than tossing like buckets and buckets of water on him, or like luring him into a trap or something? Like, how would you take on a character like that? So in that regard, I see the need for hockey to be like, here's a way to kind of level the playing field where it doesn't really eliminate the discrepancies and kind of like power and things like that between Devil Fruits and like the users and like all that. Like, it doesn't take away the destructive power of Devil Fruits and their capabilities, but it kind of helps level the playing field a little bit because all right, now with hockey, it kind of short cuts the word. Starting around my words just get mixed up. But it basically, like, if the length between like the discrepancy between powerful Delver user and just a normal person was this before hockey, hockey kind of lowered that gap a little bit, so it made it more equal. So in that regard, I understand why I introduced it. But I feel like ever since it was introduced, Oda's lost a lot of creativity in the fights before, because you don't really get a moment like Luffy punching Crocodile with his blood, because he's like, oh, blood hardened sand, which is such an epic, unique moment in the series. Where it's just like, oh, of course, this is the kind of thing that Luffy does, where like, he thinks out of the box to kind of come up with a solution for how to defeat a character that is so much more powerful than him and seemingly invincible. He has to kind of use his head and think of ways to kind of circumvent these difficulties. But with hockey now, it's like, all right, if I just punch this character really, really hard with hockey, I'll be able to take him out. Or if I concentrate really, really hard, I'll be able to take him out. And that's why I didn't like the Katakuri fight as much as a large majority of the fandom, because I'm like, all right, I get that Oda's trying to use the excuse of like, oh, hockey blooms in battle. So when you're fighting someone that's really tough, your hockey growth will accelerate a lot more than it would in a normal fight. Whereas like, all right, Katakuri's been trained in this for like years and years and years and years and years. And Luffy just kind of comes in and he's like, oh, I just have a natural ability. So I'll be on your level of, able to use this future sight hockey on your level after a few minutes. Never really sat right with me. And it felt like Oda used that as an easy get out of jail free card for like, oh, how is he going to defeat these invincible characters? Like, oh, he'll just get super good at using hockey in a few minutes. And that's why like I don't really like Rio as an introduction. I'm like, all right, he's saying here's another level of hockey. That's fine. That's something he's done before. But now again, makes it feel like, all right, now it's just being like, oh, I can't come up with a creative way for how they're going to defeat Kaido. So I'll just say they're going to have this new kind of hockey. They'll be able to let them circumvent his defenses, and they'll just have to punch him really hard with it. But I agree, like, yeah, it didn't really feel like there was anything special about the scabbards, the way they stabbed him. And like I said at the beginning, if Oda had done a little bit more, if he'd at least said, like, oh, we're gonna be pouring, like the scabbards had just kind of monologued in their mind and said, oh, we're gonna be pouring, the 20 years of regret, anger, whatever we had into these blows. How we're gonna make you feel it, Kaido, or something like that. I think that would have made it feel a little bit distinguished from just a normal stab, like from a normal hockey clash. But yes, it felt like they're just like, oh no, we're just gonna stab really, really hard, and then we'll eventually get through it. It didn't feel like any different from a normal stab. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Oda just felt like he didn't have enough time to do something else. He just wanted to kind of get it out of the way quick just because of how much he packed into the chapter. But it really kind of lessened the impact of that moment. Like, it was a good moment, but it was missing a little something. Uh, which brings me to the last bit. So the Scabbards are taking on Kaido, and it seems like the Minks are going to be joining in, and we're seeing our awakened forms. So how is Oda going to approach this? So this is where we're going to get into the mixed feelings, because the way it's set up right now, it feels like, all right, this is really the climax of Wano. There'll be some minor setbacks, but they'll be able to persevere, take down Kaido, and win. And, the climax of the arc really is getting approaching soon. I don't think that would be really satisfying if it did. I mean, Oda could really do that the way he set it up, because the way he introduced Kaido was like, oh, in a one-on-one fight, always bet on Kaido because he'll win. All right, so what if it's a 9-on-1 fight or a 20-on-1 fight? Do you still bet on Kaido to win when he's facing overwhelming odds like that? So could the samurai, in conjunction with the Minks, in their Sulong form, could they potentially take out Kaido? Possibly. I think there's enough overwhelming forces there that they could potentially, do enough damage to him that, Luffy could just come in and strike the final blow, take him out, and do all that. I don't think that would be particularly satisfying, and I don't think Oda is going to circumvent the myth he's built up around Kaido of like, oh, he's invincible one-on-one, just to have it be like, oh, ha ha ha, he got taken out because he wasn't fighting one-on-one. So I don't think that's going to happen. But how else is it going to play out? I honestly do not know at this point, because there are too many moving forces. The few predictions I'm going to make are that the Minks are probably going to be taken on by the hell is it, the numbers? Because we've only seen one of them so far. We haven't seen any of the other numbers so far. We don't know where they are or what they're doing. And I've always had the personal theory that the numbers are awakened zones similar to the ones we saw in Impel Down. So I think those guys would be more of a challenge for the Minks, especially if they're giant. I could then see like a couple of Sulong Minks needing to each take on one of the numbers by themselves. So I could see that being the direction it goes. But we'll have to wait and see. I honestly don't think the raid is going to succeed here because we haven't. Because I don't know how familiar everyone is with the idea of a try-fail cycle. Where it looks like the main characters are going to succeed, everything's going their way. Some obstacle comes up, the first attempt fails, so they try again and try again. How many ever cycles it takes until the victory feels earned. They finally get that final victory over the people they're fighting against. And we haven't really had that with the Scabbards or the Straw Hats or their allies of the raid yet, where everything has gone a little too perfectly for them up to this point. Apart from Luffy causing a little bit of chaos and getting found out, that wasn't really a failure though. So I want to see how that's going to play out, and maybe I'll potentially do another video on that once I gather some more thoughts. And Damon Spade asks, do you think the person with Law is Hawkins? I don't think so. I know which character you're talking about. It's like the long, blonde-haired guy standing next to where Law is doing his whole Chambris thing. I don't think that is, because there's one of those samurai with the cut across his eye who had the same kind of long, flowing blonde hair, and that one was kind of specifically brought up in a few separate panels as a standout to distinguish him from the other samurai. I think that's the one that's standing next to Law. I don't think that's Hawkins yet. I think Hawkins is still on Kaido's side. And I think we're going to get a moment again where he does the whole, I should mention that. I think Hawkins is going to do another one of this little tarot card thing where he does the probabilities. And when he sees that the probability of allying with Kaido still is really low, and the Straw Hats are seemingly going to win, I think that's when he's going to betray Kaido would flip to the other side. I should mention that's probably the other thing that's going to play with Kaido being like, "Oh, pirates always betray you." I think Apu and Hawkins will flip sides from his to the others once they see that he's losing. We'll have to wait to see when that plays. I don't think that's Hawkins yet. Which brings up an interesting question though: where is Hawkins and Apu? Because I don't think we've seen them for a while now. So yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces. I don't think. I think we're gonna have a couple of chapters, maybe up to a, because I know it's like we're 13 chapters away from 1,000. So I could see, because I know a lot of people are speculating on like chapter 1,000 being some kind of like chapter 1,000 being super important, kind of like how 500 I think was introduced us to Raleigh having like some kind of big moment. So I could see that potentially being the thing. Like you have 13 chapters of all the different forces meeting, fighting, whatever, and then something big happening on chapter 1,000 that kind of confirms one way or another which way the chips are going to go down. So I'll have to wait and see. David saying us also, what do you think this arc's ticking clock plot device will be? There has been one in most arcs, so I see one here too. So that's an interesting question, like ticking clock device. So I think a lot of people, because I know a few other YouTubers, One Piece fans, with bigger followings than I have, that have all kind of said that they think that this raid is going to fail because of what I said. There has to be a try-fail cycle. There has to be a sense of like tension where it seems like the Straw Hats had everything going their way, and then it gets undercut from them, and they feels like they earned their victory. And I've seen two different kind of takes on this. One saying that initially at the start of this arc, Hawkins had said that Luffy's chances of survival or success or whatever in 1 month's time was like 10%, 20%, like some really low percent. And so a lot of people kind of clammed onto that. Oh, 1 month's time, that's super important. Oda wouldn't have just mentioned 1 month out of the thing, especially when we know that the raid was supposed to take place in 2 weeks. So why would he give like a 1 month timeline for what's going to happen? So a lot of people are saying, oh, something's going to happen, and it'll take a month for them to finally get out of Wano and for things to wrap up. I don't think that's going to be the case. I feel like that's a little bit too much to expect from Oda. But the other one was someone saying, all right, whatever happens, like whatever tri-fail stuff happens, it has to happen within kind of the 24 hours that the Fire Festival, the celebration of the dead has to happen. Because they said, at the end of this arc, we have to see Hiyori kind of, hey, zip it. By the end of this arc, we have to see Hiyori kind of coming to terms with Oden's death to finally let her. Wait! Zip it! Puppy's really acting up today. Apologize, guys. Sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, so that Hiyori has to allow herself to grieve because the Fire Festival is supposed to be, this. Oi! What is your problem? No barking. Hey, the Fire Festival has to be the celebration of the dead. It's finally like a way for these people to finally put, the ghosts to rest and kind of, settle all their grievances, all their whatevers, make up with the dead, etc. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards that, the ticking clock being, the Fire Festival coming to an end. And this especially ties into like a lot of the theories I've had. I've talked about this before, about this idea of, potentially Brook bringing back the souls of, the samurai that died on their initial raid to Onigashima, the ones that Ashura Doji talked about all those years ago, the ones that did the Sunach, decided to sail off and take on Kaido, and all eliminated. Everyone that Orochi's potentially killed or let die. All of those people, potential for them to be bought back as ghosts spirits, whatever, on a night celebrating or mourning the dead. I think that would be like a phenomenally cool concept to kind of go with and use in this arc and this story specifically. So that being like the 24 hours, being like, oh, we have to do this, we have to act, we have to use these forces while we can, during this fire festival time, because after this they'll kind of go back to the underworld, they'll go back to sleep, whatever. I could see that being the ticking clock, and I could see, because right now we're at the full moon, I'm gonna guess it's close to midnight or something like that. So I could see the literal ticking clock being the sun, like literally rising over Wano, after the country's finally been freed and everyone's finally like able to celebrate and all that. I could see that being the ticking clock. But honestly, there's just still just too many moving pieces at this point, kind of, especially because there is still some outliers. I'm kind of wondering what their role in this arc is going to be, despite everyone being like, oh, you can't introduce any more characters at this point, because I cannot see Kaido's downfall happening without Moria either being involved in some way or being there to witness it, given his history with Kaido, given the fact Oda specifically bought him back during one of the little breaks we got, and that he's seen with Blackbeard. I can't buy that we're not going to get something with regards to that, with regards to Mori being involved in some manner with that arc ends. But given where we are now, it's like, all right, does he really have time to bring him in, kind of introduce a bunch of new characters, get them involved somehow? Or is that going to be some kind of like post arc thing where Mori will show up after Kaido's been taken down and be like involved in post arc stuff? Like, there's just so many other elements I expect to come into play here. I'm just like, I don't know how Oda could bring all this together in just a couple of hours and have it all conclude in a satisfactory manner. But I think that's why I have to wait and see like what direction the next few chapters take. Now that we finally are like done with the stupid kind of skulking around and the pretend intrigue and all that, now we're in the actual battle. I think we'll get a more definitive idea of which way the chips are going to fall. But I think I'll come down firmly on the side of saying it'll probably be over when the sun rises. I think that's going to be our ticking clock for this, is when the sun rises on Wano. So we'll have to wait and see if that's going to be it, especially with the Mink Sulong form, depending on how much of an asset that's going to be, like how much of a power boost it gives them. That would also make the rising sun more of a ticking clock, because if the Minks lose that, then I think that'd be kind of like a drawback for their side. The sun rising point would be a parallel thriller bark too. Exactly, yeah. Sun rising, parallel thriller bark, especially with the Minks also, Pedro having talked about the dawn of the world, and Kinemon also saying this, and yeah, Damon Spade saying, and Japan is called the land of the rising sun. So yeah, that's the other one I could see. There's a lot of ways I can see that happening. Right now we'll have to wait and see. But I think that's really all I've had to say about the chapter. I'm honestly kind of excited for the next few chapters. I really want to get into the fights and the conflict and really see Oda kind of tell us like what's going to happen. I really hope he gives us some interesting matchups between characters we don't expect. Because we haven't seen any of the Flying Six apart from Ulti in page 1 using their powers. So I hope we get to see some of that. We still have to see the numbers. Still a bunch of other characters we have to kind of see getting together. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be kind of like, I think, a mini Marineford again, where we're going to get just a bunch of crowded panels with a lot of characters and a lot of movement happening all at once. So we'll see how much Oda's learned from Marineford and how much he kind of improves with that paneling and layout stuff. in the next few ones. Because this is also something I mentioned before, is that I feel like all these like little mini conflicts and battles and wars he's doing is Oda kind of testing himself to get himself ready for the inevitable war that's going to happen at the very end of the series, where he's literally going to bring together like every single notable character we've seen in the story up to this point. He's going to bring them all together, either in cameos or have them directly involved. So I feel like a lot of this is going to be testing himself to be like, can I manage such a huge cast of characters and not make it feel overcrowded or rushed? I think that's going to be his biggest challenge. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And before I wrap up, I just want to do a quick little digression and talk about stakes, because this has been bugging me for a while. Wait! Because I've seen a lot of people talking about how Pedro's implied death has meant that there is, now stakes are now back in One Piece. And it's really, really bugged me, because that's not what stakes mean. And to see people can kind of conflate now, being like, oh, stakes and consequences, even though they're kind of interrelated ideas, they're not really the same thing. And the best definition of seeing of what stakes are in writing is the way it was defined is that stakes are what stops a character from walking away from a conflict. That's it at like the most basic level ever. And I think a lot of people kind of forget that, because stakes can be something, as small and inconsequential to us as a character has an important exam coming up and they cannot afford to fail the exam. That is an example of a stake for a character where it's like, all right, they cannot walk away from this. They cannot decide to not write the exam or do whatever, because that means they'll fail. And the consequence of that will be something like, I don't know, they're going to lose their scholarship, or, they won't be able to get into the university they want into, whatever. But the stake is just, all right, what's preventing this person from walking away from this conflict? So whenever people say like, oh, One Piece finally has stakes again, like the series never lost its stakes. It always had stakes. Like every conflict, there was always a reason the characters couldn't walk away. So the series never lost stakes, but the series does play fast and loose kind of with the consequences or the repercussions or the outcomes of said conflict, of which kind of death is one of those things that can happen, right? It's like, all right, I can't walk away from this conflict because a character can potentially die. All right. The stakes being, all right, of course, we can't walk away because the person could die. The person dying being a consequence of, not following through or walking away. But this idea now that because, Oda implied that Pedro's potentially dead, that this series is now like treating death as something that can treating death more seriously, and that Oda's fake outs aren't as bad as they are. That just really annoys me, because that's just complete bullshit. And I just really hate the fact that people are like, oh my god, man, like, oh, people could potentially die again because Oda implied that Pedro might be dead. If no one's learned anything from Pound having gone through the same thing, where we thought he was dead, Oda reveals later that we know he's fine, he came back, not really much the worse for wear. I don't know what to tell you, but I just want to get that out there because that was really bugging me. David Spade asks, will you be reading other Jump titles like Jujutsu Kaisen or Chainsaw Man? If you had asked me this a week ago, my answer would have been radically different from what it is now. Because a week ago, before the whole Act Age author thing, I think everyone should be familiar with what happened. But for those of you that aren't, so Act Age, the series is running in Jump right now, was a writer-artist team that was doing the series. And the writer has been convicted of assaulting underage girls, riding around on a bicycle, insulting various underage girls. And so he got brought up on criminal charges. And so Jump kind of decided, Jump posted an announcement this morning saying they're going to cancel the series. And honestly, this is the third time that Jump has had a author, that's revealed to be a pedophile, because they had it with Watsuki and all of the child porn charges against him. They had it with was Shimabukuro, the author of Toriko, who was also charged with soliciting underage girls for sex. And then now they've had it with the Act Age author as well. Sorry, a second, just have to get to the comments here. Yeah, so Mystic says, I cut my membership. I'm done financially supporting that fucking company. Yeah, so that's kind of where I am now. Because now that Haikyuu's ended, like One Piece is really the only series I actively kind of follow weekly that I just don't like skim through for the most part. And given that, and I've been kind of rethinking my like Mistake has, I'm kind of rethinking my support because Oda went out of his way to help Watsuki get a rehabilitated image. But because they had that whole like he was doing some kind of he did an interview with Watsuki because Watsuki was doing some kind of panel or something like that where they're trying to like talk about Kenshin and all that, like trying to promote his work again. And I know a lot of people are trying to like excuse and talk about Oda being like, not complicit in that, but being like, oh, Watsuki was Oda's mentor, so he probably has conflicted feelings about it, because he was so integral to his career and his growth as an artist and all that. And I'm like, all right, you can have your conflicted feelings, but that doesn't mean you go out there and help promote the man who had literally so much child porn in his office that the police suspected intent to distribute because they found so much of that in his office and in his workplace. And it's like, yeah, like Mystic says, he most certainly is complicit. Like, yeah, like people want to give Oda the benefit of the doubt and go light on because they're like, oh, One Piece means so much to me and the series means so much to me. And I'm like, they're so unwilling to kind of criticize or call out Oda's shortcomings, because they want to give him the benefit of the doubt and believe that he has, these good intentions in what he's doing. But when he turns around and sexualizes women, like I pointed this out before, a lot of the characters post times to be sexualized. Rebecca, Shirahoshi, Pudding, they've all been under 16 or under, in the series. And at this point, that's starting to look more suspicious than it would have a lot more suspicious because like more suspicious when you see his connection because Oda's also a friend of Shimabukuro, who's the other author who got convicted for being a pedophile in Jump. So I'm at this point where I'm like, all right, can I really support a magazine whose culture is so steeped in this that they've had 3 pedophiles being outed, like 3 pedophiles being outed in like this span of like short number of years. And when the editors talk, when I think someone like there was an interview going around a while ago where the editors were asking, why has there never been a female editor in the history of Jump? And some of the editors are making comments like, oh, it's like, oh, I'd really love a female editor. Oh, she can speak all nasty to me, she can scold me and do all these things. Or do like living out like these weird sexual fantasies of like having a female editor. So when you have a culture that's so steeped in that kind of thing, I don't really feel comfortable kind of supporting them or like promoting the series that run in Shonen Jump on my channel. And I know like, it doesn't mean that just because, Jujutsu Kaisen runs in Shonen Jump that the author condones, what these other people have done or condones this kind of behavior. But at the same time, like there's so many other series I would rather devote my time and efforts to that I don't really think it's worth it for me to do that for Shonen Jump anymore. So honestly, maybe I'll read Jujutsu Kaisen and just talk about it on my Twitter, but I don't think I feel comfortable really talking about it on my channel. If enough people honestly, if enough people say they'd like my thoughts on it, I'll look at doing something for it, whether it's short reviews, maybe a reaction or so, depending. But yeah, I don't know, like conflicted feelings. I have to kind of sit with this and decide like how I feel about it going forward. Because Mystic says I adore One Piece, but I'd never ignore Oda supporting a pedo. Yeah, honestly, like this is also something I'm thinking about, like in general, just connected to One Piece as well. Because compared to a lot of my contemporaries, like everyone else I know in the fandom, I really am feel like I am kind of a pariah in the One Piece fandom because I am very critical of Oda because I know he can do better. Because I know he can do better. I'm not overtly positive about the series in a way a lot of people are. I'm very, very critical of the series and my approach to it. So that has unfortunately meant, a lot of people basically either mute me, won't watch my stuff, won't support me the same way that someone who does, fanatically love the series will. So that's something else I've been thinking about with relation to the One Piece videos I'm doing as well. Is like, all right, how much longer do I want to do these videos for? Like, how much more? How is it worth it to keep doing the videos? Because it honestly is one of the lowest viewed things on my channel for most of the times, especially the One Piece analysis videos I do. They don't really do the numbers that I'd like. And just given my feelings on the series now, how I'm not as in love with it as I used to be, it's kind of like, all right, do I want to just divert my energy and passion to something else that I enjoy more? So I don't know. Right now, my mindset is kind of like I'm going to see how Wano plays out before coming to a decision on what I'm going to do with One Piece going forward. Am I still going to be reacting to it, or am I just going to do like, give it up and then maybe react to it once a month, once every 2 months, once let backlog of chapters build up or something. But yeah, it's kind of a conflicted feeling right now. Mystic said the mangaka Yamato recalled a weekly Shonen Jump with their pedophile problem. Love that guy in his series. Yes, that's amazing. I'm glad he's doing that. That might be a series I pick up and do on the channel instead. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to do some thinking about what shape the channel is going to take going forward, and whether I'm going to be reacting to any weekly running series going forward, or if I'm just going to fully kind of shift to doing volume reads and things like that. But I haven't made my mind up yet. If anyone has any opinions or thoughts on that, if you would like, if there is a weekly series that you would really love to see me do on this channel, then I'll definitely consider it. You can always sound off in the comments. Let me know, hey, I think you should try out this series. It's really good. It talks about this and that. This is why I love it, stuff like that. And I'm more than willing to give it a chance. But right now, I'm not particularly thrilled with Shonen Jump, especially because they bought back Watsuki after giving him like the tiniest ass fine that barely even made like a dent in anything. He got like no jail time whatsoever. And the fact they just kind of bought him back as, pretend like it was no big deal. But for drug offenses, like they will like salt the earth for a drug offense is just, yeah, so I don't know. So Mystic said, Hinamatsuri is done, so it'd be a good series to do. It's a great comedy. I will definitely check that out because I have to, because I'm getting close to the end of Battle Angel Elite. I think I've only got 3 more volumes left to finish. After that, Ascender read-throughs will be like once every few months. And right now, I can't really do my Yona of the Dawn read-throughs just because libraries here are still under quarantine. I don't want to go out and do anything with that. So yes, this week I'll probably put together some kind of schedule or plan for what series I'm going to read through and things like that. And I'll do a channel update sometime this week with a few more concrete thoughts. But yeah, I don't know. Shonen Jump is probably not going to happen unless there's a lot of demand for it for my viewership. So I think that's where I'm concluding with that. So with that said, I think this ran a lot longer than I expected. But it was really fun with the discussions, some really good questions. Looking forward to getting to the chapter 2 weeks from now because Jump's on break next week. And until next time, this is Ash. Talk to you all later.